New perspective gain from all the pain and stress. And when I do come back, I'm stronger than ever before. So kneel down, disturbing the beach. Look into my eyes. Now tell me the things you were loving about behind my back. Looking at me, our heart is hard to break down. It's too late for apologies. It's going down. Disturbing the peace. Look into my eyes. Now tell me the things you were loving about behind my back. Looking at me, I hold this hard to break down. It's too late for apologies. It's going
Drive until the break of dawn, rounding out. I'm on a mission, rounding out. Whatever it is I gotta do, rounding out until the day I meet you. I'm rounding out. I look up in the skies, asking out a while, but never let it faze me. I'm keeping good vibes when I'm on the road. Watch out for all surprises. Whatever vibes is good and bad, but nothing ties.
another one day in the night. Let me paint the view. Color down with my light. For every moment share with you, not in the day, but never fully gone. Go and be back again until the coming over down.
For the days ahead of us, put your hands up, wave it side to side for good luck. For the nights like this, put your hands up, love the moment even from dusk. Yo, you always got my back, and of course I got your back. Don't you worry about that now. It's been a good day, good night. It's gonna be a good day, good night.
Hello, and welcome to a special stream. Every stream's a special stream here on the Night Sky Prince channel. How is everyone doing today? We got a stream for Atlus's brand new IP from the Persona team. Nicholas14, what's up, man? We got a brand new IP today from Atlus, from the Persona's team, and they are creating a medieval fantasy game called Metaphor. Metaphor is one of my most anticipated games of the year. I have been wanting this game for a while. It was... Oh shit, sorry. Got feedback here. Let me... Oops. Okay. There we go. Anyway, I've been wanting this game for a really long time. This game is essentially like medieval fantasy Persona. So it's really cool in that way. And it is going to be really interesting. It's supposed to be the third pillar of Atlas, let's just go ahead and like kind of like recap on Metaphor here, just so you guys are familiar. I'm sure that there are some people in chat that probably have only kind of vaguely heard about Metaphor and they're not like super sure on like what exactly it is. So let's just kind of recap for you guys. Take a look at it. So we'll start with the announcement trailer. But essentially, Metaphor is this. Now, visually, this game, right out of the gate, super stunning, right? Like, I mean, this is like, it is gorgeous. Actually, let me see if I can't, can we do theater mode, guys? Can we, okay, actually, it's good. Let me fix this. Let's go ahead and fix, sorry. Let me pause it on a bright frame so I can see the borders here. Get the cropping right before the stream starts. Anyway, yeah. You just fix. I hate OBS. This is always a thing. I wish there was just like a way to be like, just capture YouTube. There's probably a plugin or something out there for that. But we don't have time for all that today. We are just gonna crop it like traditionally. Subtext, what's up, man? They're showing more of this game? Yes, they're gonna be showing more of it later. Right now, we're just kind of reviewing, you know, what Metaphor is for the chat, letting everyone know. And the way the characters channel in their inner classes with synthesis is very DDS coded. The art style looks like a mix of Persona and SMT. It kind of is. It kind of is. In fact, if we go back here, it looks like... Okay, I was gonna say that spell name kind of looked familiar to some SMT stuff, but like, actually, I think the spell names are not like SMT or Persona. So that's interesting alone. But anyway, this is probably the only thing that can give Rebirth a run for its money in terms of being game of the year right now, I think. Now, that being said, it's really difficult for me to imagine a game like this winning game of the year. I mean, even despite the reception of Persona 5, for example, and this is coming from the people who made Persona 5. Now, we also learned just yesterday, of course, this is P Studio, but they're not ditching Persona 5's engine. Mataru Kaja is an SMT/Persona move. I thought it was, right? But then if you look at the other moves, it's not, right? Like the wind move and like the other moves. So I guess some of the moves will have SMT naming and then some of them won't have SMT naming. Where was that at? Right? So it looks like some of them have SMT naming. And then also it looks like it does something completely different because isn't Mataru Kaja, isn't that like a defense spell? Isn't that the one that does like defense on like your whole party? No, that's I'm fucking up. I never remember Persona and SMT spells. I only remember like the basic elemental ones like Bufu and Agi and all the defensive ones. Tsukukaja, I remember that, but I kind of have to read them each time. Okay, is that Maruku Kaja? Okay. See, I told you. This isn't Atlus's P Studio team, it's Studio 0. Oh, okay. It says that at the start. But they do still advertise. So P Studio, then correct me if I'm wrong. P Studio now would be working on Persona 6, right? For any of the Atlus heads that know. But yeah, Midori confirmed yesterday that this is like it's still being worked on with the Persona 5 engine. Okay, so Studio Zero is made of old Persona devs. Oh, okay. So the old Persona devs, okay, this was always kind of confusing to me, but now I get it, right? Because I heard that Persona 6 was basically being led by a ton of new talent, right? So correct me if I'm wrong for anyone who's like a super big Atlas head in here. But basically you have the old Persona devs now at Studio Zero, and then you have basically a new staff, a younger staff working on Persona 6, right? Because the younger staff is supposed to take over. Isn't the people who did the third, right? It's supposed to be like the third semester people who for Persona 5 Royal that are working on Persona 6. And basically, their sort of like first project was doing Persona 5 Royal so that they could get basically familiarized with working on Persona. And then from there, they would be working on the next Persona, right? So P6 is basically like entirely new guys. If from my not entirely new, but but mostly new, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Reload was made by entirely new staff. Okay. I think they did a fairly good job on Reload. I've seen like a lot of people saying some stuff about Reload, but I thought Reload was really good. Do you think this game will have social sim elements? I think it would be a mistake if it didn't, personally speaking. I think that those social sim elements have kind of become like really key to like what Atlus's games are. You know what I'm saying? Like people do kind of look forward to those social sim elements, and it's kind of unique in a way that you don't get from too many other RPGs in general. So I really like the social sim elements of Persona, and considering this is a game from Persona heads, or Persona key staff, I should say, I would love to see them do what they've been doing really well with 3 through 5. I think what's so awesome about the social sim elements of Persona and the calendar system is that the calendar system basically is super flexible, and you could put that calendar system in a number of different games and scenarios, and it'd be really interesting, right? It's why one of like the things that people do is kind of come up with like like a dream persona, right? That would be different from like the normal personas, if that makes sense. Like I even pitched one myself where I was like, what if there was a persona game where you're playing as like salarymen in Japan, right? So you're like late 20s, early 30s salarymen. Because I think that would be cool, right? Like, and it could be like a whole story on like, just deconstructing Japanese society from that point of view. You could do a game like that. But Persona itself is rooted in high school, right? Like that's what it is. It's about going back to high school and having that high school experience. So really, I do feel like you could take the calendar system, and I feel like you could put it I feel like you wouldn't have to just limit it to high school. There's so many different things you could do with the calendar system and so many different settings that you could put the calendar system in, and it would be incredible, to the point of where that's why people kind of pitch those things, and there's always pushback because everyone will say Persona is high school, right? And I think the developers agree. Like thematically, that's what Persona is. But that being said, I don't think that like doing Persona games in different settings would be like a bad idea. Like I feel like actually like if we could take like Persona's formula and put it in different things, then that would actually be really cool. Hello, Hylian, how you doing? So yeah, I'd be super cool with that. Persona with it. I mean, yeah, because I mean, basically, think about Catherine, right? Like Catherine, but Persona would also be really good. So, I'm all for basically having Persona likes because I know Persona main series is like going to stay high school because that's what Persona is. Excited for this one. ReFantazio looks really interesting from a distance. It does. It does. And these are, the guys who worked on P3 through P5. These are guys who, banger after banger, have created really successful games. I mean, Persona 3 was kind of the game that changed everything, right? And then from there, they've only continued to consistently make awesome stuff like, Persona 4, Persona 5. Persona 5 kind of being like, the peak of what they've done so far in terms of reception, sales, and just general gameplay, I feel like. So Catherine was also a great new IP too. Catherine was phenomenal. I think Catherine was just like one of those games where it was like, Catherine is so Atlus core, right? It's the type of game that really only Atlus can make. And it's also interesting. It's so incredibly unique, right? Like we're never going to get like anything like that again. 2017 was nothing but Persona 5 and Nier Automata. I know. And that was like 2017, that stretch of time in 2017 was like really crazy, right? Because you had Persona 5, Nier Automata, and Breath of the Wild in like such like a short span of time. And those those three games were so impactful in such like a huge way. And you could really feel like it was just like gaming was just like heavily evolving at that point. Like it felt like the new generation kind of like JRPGs and Japanese games was like there. It looks distinct from Persona and has mecha designs from Evangelion. The aesthetics look unique and it has some really good potential. If it delivers, I can see this being RPG of the year easily. Yeah, I can too. I don't know. I think that in like the mainstream though, like Rebirth will still probably win out because I think Rebirth resembles something more that the mainstream will want. I say that, but then like you look at like Persona 5, right? And how huge Persona 5 was in the mainstream. And these are the guys who made Persona 5, so I haven't dug deep into this game aside from checking out the art, but reading the wiki, kind of a wild concept. The game explores the themes of an ideal and reality, as well as overcoming anxiety. It takes place in a medieval fantasy world that is the mirror of the contemporary world. Yeah, it's pretty insane. So, but that again, that's also like what I love about Atlus too is that I feel like Atlus does these really weird, insane, like stuff that like just no one else is doing or no one else would do. The divisive discourse on Rebirth will make the game age by the end of the year. I mean, you would think, right? But then like I guess you also would have thought that too about like Final Fantasy 16, but I actually feel that like as Final Fantasy 16 has gone on, it may have become less divisive. But that also could be because that like with FF16, it might be that like people who found it divisive have already kind of just dipped out. Or like people who were just like not into it just kind of like checked out, right? And so it could also be that. So it's really hard to say like if things like got less divisive over time or if people who are just not into it just checked out and they don't bother to like most people don't bother to fight online. If they see someone who enjoyed something they didn't, they just move on. I don't know. Well, FF16 didn't get nominated by the big prizes by the end of the year, right? But also too, like there was no way that it was going to, because Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, Spider-Man, yeah, there's just Mario Wonder. I just didn't think that there was, yeah, it was hard for. It's a bit hard for. I think FF16 haters have moved on to hating Rebirth now instead. I don't think so. I think Rebirth and 16 have different haters, actually. I don't think they have the same haters. So I don't know. Is Rebirth very divisive though? It just feels that way. I don't think Rebirth is that divisive, right? Like well, it depends. It depends on which corner you go to. This is always a thing that is like difficult to talk about when we talk about like divisiveness. There are some games that are divisive like everywhere for the most part. Right? Like I don't know, if you talk about like Final Fantasy 13, I think like no matter where you go and you talk about FF13, it's always gonna be like some people are gonna like love it, some people are gonna hate it. Well, maybe not actually, because I feel like if you talk about FF13 on Twitter specifically, like there's a lot of love for it. But honestly though too, like a lot of people who don't like something, most people who don't like something don't really go out of their way to own people who do. And I know it can definitely seem like that's not the case. I know it can definitely seem like that's not the case. But if you really think about it, that's only a small percentage of something, right? Because think about yourself personally, right? Think about the stuff you like that you watched or like played and you don't like it. For the most part, you still don't comment on other people's posts and tell them that like, hey, that's shit. So it's really hard to gauge actual divisiveness sometimes. Because usually the guy who goes out on a limb and is like, I thought that shit sucked that and is like willing to fight people over it, he's usually the minority, not necessarily in like the way that he feels, but just in the way that most people aren't going to go out of their way to be like, it was terrible. Most of the times, you see something that someone else liked that you didn't, you're kind of just like, well, that's nice. And then you move on. And maybe that's how it should be. But Luke, what's up? Do you plan to get some Pizza Hut? No, I'm cooking. I think Mario Wonder is definitely was Game of the Year worthy. The game design of that one's phenomenal. It's a far better game than Tears of the Kingdom, which got so much undeserved praise. Right. Well, I think Tears of the Kingdom, honestly, I think actually as Tears of the Kingdom went on, it actually did kind of like decline in reception for sure. Like almost no question. Because now when I see Tears of the Kingdom being discussed on the internet, it is definitely. I just realized that I'm turned down kind of low. Hold on. Okay, there we go. But now when I see Tears of the Kingdom being discussed, there it is definitely divisive for sure. There's definitely a lot of people that, yeah, Tears has definitely soured with some people. I don't think there's any question on that. Like I see it all the time. So, I think F13 is getting some softening over the past few years. I think there's a lot of actually the hate was too much in the community for it now. I think that like one of the problems with 13 is that like gamers are really not good at communicating like what's wrong with the game or like communicating criticism. And so what happens is that a lot of the times, and this is also the case too with a lot of the criticisms of 16, is that a lot of the times when people go to criticize stuff, they mean to articulate something that doesn't come out the way that actually captures their argument, right? And I think like linearity, for example, with 13 is like a prime example of why gamers tend to hold on to the most mainstream criticism too. Well, I think that like a lot of times why people will parrot like what a YouTuber says, which is like a very common thing to do, is that usually they already felt that way, but then the YouTuber came along and put it into good words. And I'm not going to tell you that I've never used an argument that one of my content creator friends made first, because usually that's what content creators do in the gaming space, is that we're typically good at putting things into words that you felt, but may not have been able to articulate yourselves. So hell yeah, I got that opinion from a YouTuber. That's that's what they do. I mean, I already had the feeling, but the YouTuber just, he made it a thing that I could just say, and like, yeah, like that's what it is. Like, Rossi, what's up? Does the game have the same battle system as Persona? It's a similar battle system, I think, but I think its own. We parrot what you say because you're based, though. Only reason ever. Thank you. Right, but see, you still have to think that I'm based in order to parrot like what I say. So, which means that I'm saying something that's agreeable, that resonates with you. 13 is getting an overcompensated soft ending recently. I strongly believe it is tied to the generation that is more active and vocal online, aka the people who grew up with 13 as their big FF. I think what it is just that it hasn't been, that it's not playable. And so people can only think about that game. But I think if they actually played it recently, they'd understand. Like, because most people have not played that game recently. Most people are operating based on how they remember it. I think if they play it, the reception will be like pretty fair. 13.2 was good though. Didn't you get hate for saying God of War 2018 game design is your ideal FF? I said it with Ragnarok in particular. I said, like, while I was playing Ragnarok, I was like, this would be a great Final Fantasy, actually. I don't think I got much hate for it, though, but, like, I do think God of War Ragnarok is, like, kind of like, God of War Ragnarok is like, kind of like what I was expecting, like, FF16 to be, specifically. And I guess God of War 2018 by extension. But, like, yeah, I was kind of expecting, like, Neo God of War to be like what Final Fantasy 16 was going to be like. But then it wasn't, actually. God of War with a protagonist that isn't lame. Wait, are you calling Clive lame or Kratos lame? I don't think either one is lame though. I like Clive and Kratos. I think they're both pretty cool. FF16 feels like an entry level character. It is. And I think Yoko Taro really talked about this in like his latest interview. And it's something I really disagree with Square Enix on. I understand like why Square Enix does this, but I just disagree with them on this. And that is that, you know, Square Enix's philosophy is basically that, you know, Square Enix feels that their audience isn't good enough at action games. This is what Yoko Taro said, so don't at me. Don't at me about this. But Yoko Taro mentioned, he's like, basically the existing Square Enix audience isn't great at action games. And so because they're not good at action games, they try to make their action games like really accessible, right? They don't try to overcomplicate them. And I think the end result of that is that sometimes you end up watering down the game to the point of where an action game audience isn't going to be interested in it, right? The whole point of switching to action in the first place is to capture the action game audience. But if you water the action elements down so much, then why would the action game audience play it, right? But then you want to make it easy for your existing audience. You want to make it a simple game. But it's like, but then what about the audience of people that you're trying to capture by making this an action game? So if that's the case, just stay turn-based, right? But then like, you know, so it's like, and I'm fine with action, right? And I'm fine with turn-based too. But I'm like, if you're going to do one, do it all the way. Don't fucking half do it. right? Like, don't half do it and then be like, why are they into it? Dude, it's because they bitch about not being able to play them. That's why they gave them all the grace with 16 difficulty. It's so the turn-based people can play the game because they bitch so much. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But it's also like, that's what the rings are for, right? Like, that's what the rings are for. It's so that it can be for people who aren't good at it, right? And I think there's nothing wrong with being not good at it. Like, especially like if you are a turn-based guy and your turn-based series went action and you're like, I'm not good at this, so I need to use the accessibility features. I think that's like so okay. But like from Square Enix's standpoint, I'm like, just go all in and like actually make the game. I deeply disagree with that also. My big issue is that they give countless ways to make the game easier and more accessible, but zero options for making it. Right, exactly. And so that's also kind of the thing too, right? Is that if you give all these options to make it easier, I feel like you also need to give options to make it more challenging. And I guess my confusion on it is that, I mean, this is not just an issue with 16, by the way. This is an issue with Final Fantasy 15. It's an issue with Kingdom Hearts 3. It's not as big of an issue with Re-Trilogy, but it's still an issue with Re-Trilogy because Re-Trilogy doesn't allow you to be completely challenged out of the gate. But I think that Re-Trilogy, has at least a decently challenging normal mode. Like, it's not balls hard by any means, but it's engaging enough throughout the whole time that I can't just like, sit back and like watch myself get beat up. I do have to sit up straight and pay attention. But it's still kind of an issue too with Re-Trilogy. And so Rebirth normal mode is perfect level of difficulty. Right. It's why people complain about it less with Re-Trilogy, is because Re-Trilogy's balancing is good enough that normal mode is perfect difficulty level for most people, I think. Normal and dynamic. Like, I think that's like, for most people, that's enough. But I still think that like in a day and age where there's games like Sony first party games that'll offer you like 5 or 6 difficulty options, that like just fucking make like another hard mode that's available from day one. Like, I don't think people should have to beat the game to get like any type of challenge with it. That audience point with FF16, I think, extends to the entire FF brand at the moment, as I totally agree. They should dedicate one way or the other. The middle ground is not doing them favor. It's exactly how I feel with the Re-Trilogy, what it's doing narrative. That's also true. I agree, Crossy. Yeah, because narratively with the Re-Trilogy too, you also have that, and I'm just like, because one of the problems with Re-Trilogy, I feel like, is that you want this game to sell more, but then you also have a story that's so exclusive to existing audience members that how am I supposed to convince people who haven't played Final Fantasy VII to play it? Because it's not as perfect of an entry point as it could be. And then at the same time, that's not a perfect entry point. It's also really, you have to like really know FF7 to like fully grasp it. One of the complaints for the newer FF entries is staggering. It was kind of fine in 13 Trilogy, but it's gotten annoying. I actually only like the stagger mechanic in Re-Trilogy, and I hate it in like every other game. Like, I feel like in Re-Trilogy I like it, but I don't like it as much in 13 or 16, for example. I think it's fine maybe in like 13 too. I actually don't remember it well enough in Lightning Returns to comment. But what do you think of the turn-based is too slow argument? That depends on the turn-based, right? Like, FF9's turn-based is hella slow. Persona 5's turn-based is really fast. Depends on like what turn-based we're talking about. FF14 has the same problem with difficulty. The main story is way too easy. Sure, they have super hard stuff later, but that's after 200 hours. Yeah, it's a CBU3 problem specifically with. I feel like making content really easy. So easy that people just straight up don't know how to play the game. Oftentimes. Rebirth drastically reduced the difficulty IMO. Having access to all the elemental attacks without having to need elemental materia makes combat easier. Then you add in the ability to extend windows for blocking and ATB. Yeah, no, I actually kind of agree. I do think that Remake was better balanced in that sense. And I think Remake Part 1 actually was probably the best balancing that they've ever had in terms of difficulty. But that's also too because it's so linear that it's an easy game to balance in that way. Did you play Rising Tide in full? Yes. What do you think about it so far? How does it fare with the rest of Final Fantasy 16? So I'll say this. Out of the gate, the Leviathan fight is the best Icon fight because it's the only Icon fight where you pay attention and you have to like do mechanics and stuff to win it. It's not just QTE. So it was my favorite one by far. I love the Leviathan fight. Other than that, I do feel like it was just more FF16. I think like compared to say like Intermission or compared to like 15's DLC, it was a little lacking because you don't do anything like that you didn't do in the base game. There's not like a new feature or like a new playable character or like a new shakeup. There's new icons, yeah, but like it just feels like FF16 kept going a little bit further. Yeah. Yeah. Like it could have just been more Final Fantasy 16. Right? Like it could have just been part of the main game and like it wouldn't have stood out, if that makes sense. I don't mean that in a necessarily mean way, but it just wasn't like a special piece of content, if that makes sense. It was just like this is more of the same thing. So I don't understand the recession when the series remaining turn-based. I feel it should be the dev's choice as long as they show us a good time. I don't think it's necessary for Final Fantasy to remain turn-based either. I just want them to actually make something that like, doesn't like... I think they have to make something that if they are going to go action has to be like... It has to go in such a way that isn't like, oh, we need this to be kind of dumbed down, if that makes sense. So that dumbed down is not the word I want to use here, because I feel like that may convey the wrong intent. I don't think it needs to be overly streamlined. There we go. That's better wording. I don't think it needs to be overly streamlined to the point of where an action game enthusiast would look at it and feel like it's too simple for them, right? Like, I feel like in like someone who's really into action RPGs, like a regular person coming off of something like Elden Ring or some other action RPG would come into it and feel like they're getting that deep, satisfying experience. Not to say that it should be like Elden Ring. By the way, I'm just using that as an arbitrary example for a popular action RPG, but they should feel like it's an immersive enough experience, or there should be a difficulty option available from the first day so that they feel like it's an immersive enough experience to really sink their teeth into, and that it has depth and that it challenges them, and etc. Your commentary on the icon fights being QTE fest is so true. One of the things that pushed me back the most with 16, it's mechanically very shallow. I like the more grounded combat with just Clive. I think that's like my hottest take though about that game, maybe. Is that I actually think most of the best fights in the game are actually not with Ifrit. They're just Clive. And it's just like it'll just be a boss that has some decent basically attack design. which is basically like rate design. Like if you're actually talking about what's like really mechanically a good fight in that game, the icon fights are like not particularly the best, but the actual just Clive fights are, there's actually some decent ones in there. Like, yeah, Odin. That's why Odin before Leviathan, Odin was my favorite icon fight. Specifically because Odin wasn't even really an icon fight. It was literally just Clive and Barnabas throwing down, right? So one thing I praise about Grand Blue Fantasy Relink is that the boss fights are actual fights, not QTs. Yeah. Icon fights were never intended to be more than spectacle, interactive cutscenes, very much wearing their inspiration of Azura's Wrath on their sleeve, to be fair to them. Yeah, I mean, I get it, but at the end of the day, I'm not very impressed by spectacle usually. Like, it wears spectacle, like, almost always wears thin for me, like, very fast. So, not to say I don't like good spectacle, I do, but it's just like, it's very hard to get like a game to like stay with me lasting, like just on spectacle alone. I feel you about that. I have more of a good time getting that stagger gauge punished than I do pressing square and dodge as a freak fighting another giant. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, the combat is at its best when like you are just like annihilating an enemy, staggering the fuck out of them, and you're getting those like perfect dodges with the Berserker ring on, and then you're countering them, and then you do the fucking devil trigger and you semi-prime, and then you go off on them, and then you like stagger the enemy back to back, and then you like let off your ultimates, and then that's when the game is like at its most fun, right? To me. And then I think like whenever you're doing the icon fights, that like it's cool, but it's like it's not like this is like super deep gameplay design. I think actually the best way is like the best thing to like really judge these things on. Did the metaphor stream already happen? No, it starts in like 15 minutes. I think the best way to judge this stuff on is to think of it like this. If you removed all the fancy graphics, would it still be like as engaging, right? If you remove the spectacle of it, is it still fundamentally an engaging thing, right? Like, I think like if it had PS2 graphics, would it still be as cool? Basically, right? Like, I think that's the important thing. Well, older FF games like 6, 7, and 9 weren't particularly challenging outside of fights and secret areas. You aren't going to be challenged by random encounters in those games. You'd identify the most recourse efficient taking down a group of enemies. You'd repeat that for every random encounter. It is only boss fights that'll make you go check your equipment and status and properly pay attention to mechanics and win. I agree. For a turn-based game, yes. But I think that like the desires of a turn-based game and the desires of an action game are very fundamentally different. Gosh, thank you for the tier 1. Like, I actually don't care for like turn-based games to be like punishingly difficult. Like, it's not to say that I don't like, an SMT. A very difficult game. Beat Dragon, thank you so much for the Prime sub. But yeah, I do like a challenging game, but I do think that like in turn-based games, it's like it's not like it's different, right? Like, I don't mind like finding like an enemy is like, okay, so here's like one of the things, like in turn-based games, you're actually looking for, and especially in turn-based RPGs, like you want it to be so that you get like this like super powerful attack and you can just click the button and then you do like, full 9 damage. to the enemy. I like that mainline forces you to actually use the RPG mechanics, whereas most turn-based games do. Right, exactly, right? Like you want to, like in a turn-based game, you want to be able to like use like a strong ass ability and then it like blow the enemy up, right? As a result of you having it. But in an action game, that kind of becomes boring because then you're like, oh, I wanted to actually fight and try. And so sometimes action and RPG mechanics can almost be at odds with each other for that reason, right? But typically in an action RPG, you have two choices. You can be extremely skilled at the action side of things, or you can leverage into the RPG side of things, or you can do both, and then you can really blow up the enemy. Right? But that's always the choice you have with action RPGs. So we'll be able to maximize this window here in a second once the stream starts. FF7 Rebirth found that action turn-based sweet spot. I hope they can make it improvements and innovations to that gameplay in the future FF games. Right. I do think that they have their own genre basically with re-trilogy combat, and I think that they should continue to develop their own genre and their own unique gameplay style. I really do. SMT isn't that hard. I think the reason for it becoming infamous is because so many in the West grew up playing FF, a turn-based series that never asked you to engage in its systems in battle. Just hit August spells and spam attack. SMT or Hell Dragon Quest wants you to use buffs and debuffs for SMT to pay attention to resistances and weaknesses in a way bigger than most FF games do. I agree. SP, I guessed about ReFantazio, but here I wanted to ask, what is your biggest wishes for this game? What do you think this game should do to nail things and be your favorite game of the year? I honestly don't know because it's such a new thing. And it loosely resembles Persona, but it's also not. And so I really don't know what exactly I need this game to nail. But that's actually what I like. That's actually what I'm into, is because it's such an unknown and it's such a new thing that I don't have to come into it with franchise expectation. And so I can kind of just enjoy what it is and see it. It does have social links in a calendar, and so yeah, I would love to see what they do with that. SMT 5 isn't too tough, but 3 and 4, yeah, I've only played 5. I'm mostly a Persona guy. 5 was kind of like my introduction to SMT, but then everyone tells me that I fucked up and that I should have played 3 or 4. But I got sent the review code for 5, so I did a review on it. So, which again, I was very new to SMT, so as like a Persona guy playing SMT 5, I thought it was cool. I really didn't know. I just thought it's like, oh, this is open world Pokemon. This is awesome. So at the time, I didn't really know what like people's like franchise like expectations of it were. So, what is your opinion on the likelihood of Persona 4 and the style of reloads? Like 100%, it's definitely happening. 4 is great, but it's stuck on 3DS. It'll get a remake. SMT 5 is hard because of that Switch frame rate. The frame rate on the Switch version is an abomination. It's like 20 frames per second. It's so bad. It's a shame too, because it's actually a really beautiful game, and they had to reduce the resolution to like nothing, and then even then, the frame rate on that game is not wonderful, and it's also blurry. So. looking at the screenshots for Vengeance is crazy because it actually looks good. Yeah, I'm really curious. Vengeance is going to be something I wait on to see how other people feel about it. And then I'll dive into it. But I feel bad when I'm new to an entry, to a series like that. Enjoy a new entry that loyal fans don't like. So typically when that happens for me, I play the other games and then I get it. I get like why people feel that way. It usually clicks for me. Not to say that like I suddenly agree, but like just to say that I'll understand like where they're coming from oftentimes, and I'll be like, oh, okay, I get it. P3 and P4 are fun though. Yeah, for sure. SMT5 Vengeance is basically the real SMT5 they wanted to make. That makes sense. That's typical Atlas beta testing. I would want P4 to get reload treatment, but for the love of God, don't touch the music. Reload music. Really? I actually like reload music. Well, I understand because you mean like the original tracks from Persona 3. You don't like how they sound re-recorded. I understand. But I actually love the new music. Like, I love It's Going Down. That's like... Persona 5 is only hated on Twitter. It kind of is. It kind of is. I've never seen like hate, like more forced hate for a game than 5. I think that like literally JRPG contrarians hated how much like journalists love Persona 5, and so they did like everything they could to like, because someone could like have like the most tame opinion or praise of like 5, and they could say like 5 has like incredible music, and someone will come in and be like, you've never played a JRPG before, that's why you think Persona 5's music is great. And I'm just like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, anyone listening to P5's music would think that it's awesome. That's not chronically online and not chronically deep in JRPG discourse. Like, literally any human being would like fucking say that. Log the fuck off, bro. I promise you. I promise you, people don't hate that game in real life. It is literally only on Twitter that like that shit like exists. Twitter is contrarian. Wait, there is hate for P5, bro. There is, but it's like it's so forced. Trust me. Like it's like it's basically people mad that like it's like highly rated. And I don't think 5 is like necessarily a perfect game by any means, because I do think that there are some issues with like some storytelling stuff and everything, but like I think that Persona 5, especially Royal, is like one of the better JRPGs I've ever played. And it's so funny that like if I even posted that on Twitter, like I would have like all of these people, like all of these fucking unbathed ball sacks like on my fucking thread being like, oh, you should play some more JRPGs. And I'm like, I have, bro. I just think that game is actually really fucking good. I think it's super baller. I think it actually deserved its like 95 plus Metascore. I've never seen P5 hate in my life, bro. That's good. That means that you log off. That means that you don't have a Twitter account. That's awesome. I'm so happy for you. That is good. If you've never seen P5 hate, that means that you that means that you've logged off. You probably have like a wonderful partner. You probably have a good job. You probably bathe. That's why you don't see it, bro. That's why. ReFantazio, what's up, man? It means you have a life. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that was like an extremely like well received game, and only people that like the people that hate that game, I'm telling you, are so deep into like JRPG discourse that like that's why they hate it in the first place, is because of what it does to JRPG discourse. Like they hate that like it like fucks with it. But that is a well-made game. Like it's an extraordinarily well-made game. Like, I know how people like feel about like video game journalists. I get it. But like I trust like a circle of trustworthy journalists more than I do fanboys on the internet. I do. I'm sorry if that offends some people, because at least the journalists that I find to be trustworthy, like, you know, I can say that they, you know, they play games, but they also have lives, and they also they evaluate things pretty fairly, right? And they don't evaluate things based on like discourse or try to do things that are just so disingenuous. Whereas like fandoms are just like, so yeah, only journalist I trust is Gene. He's great. That would be like one of the journalists, for example, that I'd say is like super trustworthy, and like his opinion and assessment of things, I'm like, okay, yeah, I believe him. But like in terms of like random dude on the internet, yeah, like it's not is not the most trustworthy guy. Okay, we should be starting in like a minute or so. That being said, I do think that Reload might be my favorite overall. I don't think that it's like necessarily like a better built game than Persona 5, but I feel like, excuse me, I feel like the story of 3 is so good. I trust Tim Rogers. Of course, we all trust Tim Rogers. That's what I'm saying though, right? Like, I have like a group of journalists that I really trust. Right? And I feel like they are like, their opinions matter more to me than like 1,000 like fanboys. And yeah, I include like YouTubers and content creators in that. Honestly, the individuals that I trust who cover games are all YouTubers. I cannot bring myself to go onto Kotaku, Polygon. Yeah, no, for sure. And like even with those sites, there are still some good journalists who write for those. But then there's also like a lot of crappy too. So that's why I say my trusted circle of journalists, because I know that not every journalist out there is like super good. But if you have like a good circle of like content creators and journalists, they are going to get you a lot more unbiased, fair opinions than like this shit you find on the internet that's just like, you know, like fanboy shit. You gotta know the taste of the people talking about the stuff too for the best context. Yeah, exactly. And usually those people are more dedicated to having like a consistent opinion and don't goalpost move, and are not just trying to like one up one game or the other, or have like some type of like console fanboy biased, or you know, something like that. You know, typically they're just evaluating like, this is what it is, right? And also too, finding content creators and journalists that you find that are media literate and know what they're talking. Okay, here we go.
Let us speak of the old vulture's last grasp at power. The tournament for the throne.
So, summing up, our first trial is to slay a monster.
Sounds like we've lost a few candidates already too. Poor bastards went after something too nasty for their headhunt.
A land full of feral humans, with people either running or going mad.
What are we believing? Really?
You lot! Enemy attack!
Hitting us while we're asleep is dirty fighting!
Oh.
You're in this race to become king, are you?
Not exactly.
I'd treat all tribes equally.
each ally of a different tribe. Fascinating.
The menus, though, dude.
Fear and anxiety.
So this is an action turn-based hybrid, for those who don't know.
This place, it isn't a utopia.
If that's the real world, then it can die alongside you!
I will not let you die in vain.
He'll be sending all traitors to the gallows. Not just us, but any innocent folks he doesn't find use for.
It is a new dawn, and its light shines upon Lord Luis's king.
The race's outcome is beyond your meddling now.
I must clear my head of these fantasies. In the end, clinging to a dream will do me no good.
Knowing all this, I shall claim the ideals you abandoned and finish it in your stead.
Let's go. Oh, gaming is back on October 11th, boys. Let's go.
Hello everyone, I'm Katsura Hashino, the director of this title. For those that may not know me, I've worked on titles such as Shin Megami Tensei 3, Persona 3, Persona 4, and Persona 5 among others. Our program today is about Atlus's upcoming RPG, Metaphor, to share the latest information with you. As we announced in the trailer earlier, the release date is confirmed. The entire team is grateful for the positive feedback we've received since the announcement. But for some of you, perhaps this is the first time you're seeing Metaphor. This work is being brought to you by not only the Persona team, but in collaboration with renowned artists to create a brand new RPG. With this team, we decided to challenge the fantasy genre, aiming to create a game we can call a culmination of our RPGs.
Let's fucking go.
Our hope is that not only Atlus fans, but those who have never played our games, and RPG fans around the world will give this game a shot. Today, we'd like to spend some time introducing the gameplay experience of Metaphor, as I talk over while playing the game. Please check out the ATLUS YouTube channel for more information that will come further down the line. We'd love your support. Please subscribe. Before I start playing, let me introduce the premise of the story. In this game, you'll be forging bonds to support your claim for the throne, but it's the unique take on this that we hope puts a spin on the classic tale. In a kingdom thrown into chaos by the king's assassination, a royal magic is triggered that establishes an election. This magic allows any individual of any social status to become the next king by gaining the people's support, which sets a battle for the throne in motion. The protagonist gets involved, and the journey will take him around the world. It's a journey that I hope you enjoy, as it's unique to this game.
Man.
You'll meet various allies of different tribes, rivals who stand by their own ideologies, and terrifying monsters called humans will stand in your way. The story's brimming with fateful encounters like this. Above all else, a game
the
offers
worst
a different
monster
experience
of all.
than a movie or novel.
Humans.
So to prevent this from becoming just a vehicle for our tale, we've gone to great lengths to flesh out the experience into an exciting, fully fleshed game. There's lots to be excited about, so I hope you'll stay with us till the end. Let's get started, shall we? The title's logo design is based on the concept of a city's main street. It conveys our hope that players will enjoy a journey through a world full of diverse tribes. If you don't mind, let's start at the beginning. What makes Metaphor different from other fantasy RPGs is the perspective of their world in which our world is their fantasy. After players enter their name, they must answer the questions. Is fantasy limited to the confines of imagination? Would you call it a powerless creation? The game questions the power of fantasy, a power we all possess. I hope the game helps you arrive to your own conclusions. Our protagonist's journey and goal is to save the prince who has been cursed. This is a scene from the beginning of the game.
Think we'll make it?
What differentiates this from previous ATLUS RPGs is that we've added a more dynamic sense of action.
Let's go.
The turn-based battles are still central to the combat, but we've incorporated real-time attacking and dodging elements,
Nice.
as well as dashing around and analyzing to keep things exciting. At the beginning of the game, the protagonist isn't strong yet,
Watch out!
so the difficulty of the battles is intentionally pretty high in this area. We wanted players to get a sense of both tension and accomplishment. I might die if I risk fighting right now, so I'll explore cautiously during this segment. That said, there are multiple difficulty levels and convenience factors to make things easier, so we hope anyone who wants to play can enjoy it.
I can at least cast my usual spell for you.
In this scene, our fairy companion casts a musical spell. The music you hear in-game is in the protagonist's head. The composer behind the music is Shoji Meguro. People probably know him from the Persona series, but I've asked him not to be constrained by his trademark pop style, and to take on the challenge of creating a totally new sound to fit this game's world. We hope you'll look forward to hearing it.
It's already going off like crazy, man.
This is a particularly large area in the game, and you can see hordes of enemies ahead. One exciting aspect of this game is that you can decide which enemies to fight and how to deal with them. But I'll explain more about battles later. First, let's take a walk around a city.
Hey, you found something!
This is the first stop on our journey, the Royal Capital Grand Trad. The background art was designed by Koda Kazuma, a guest artist we're thrilled to work with. The dynamic architecture comes to life with a unique sense of realism in medieval painting like shaders. So I hope you enjoy taking it in.
Dude, it's gorgeous.
Here we are at the city entrance.
And in a way that, like,
probably noticed
SMT or Persona, like, wouldn't be.
The protagonist will ride around in this to travel the world.
It's very unique.
The original designs of these vehicles were created by Ikuto Yamashita. I'll get into the journey aspect in a little bit, so let's walk around the city a bit more. Using magic, you can ride around on your sword to get from one place to another quickly.
That's so dope.
I wouldn't define this game as being open world, but we took care to flesh out even the distant backgrounds so you can feel the unique atmosphere of every location. Now we're heading toward an alley. The atmosphere changes a lot from the main street. This is where executions happen. That's not something you see very often in modern-day stories. You'll also note some people cowering in the streets, because this world has a prevalent gap between rich and poor. As for our protagonist, he's a boy from an inferior tribe, abhorred by others.
This is running on
Despite his social
P5's
standing,
engine.
he's going to participate in the royal tournament.
So,
You'll
Midori
find many
confirmed
problems
it.
in each town you visit, and of course people will need your help. His interactions affect his popularity in the race. Let's check out the town map. You can see where you're currently located, and then instantly move anywhere you've previously visited. This should help make the journey more comfortable. Let's zoom out to the map of the entire kingdom. This is the royal capital where we are now. In this world, the areas between cities are dangerous areas referred to as wastelands, which makes travel difficult, unlike our world today. As the story progresses, your main hub moves from city to city. And with that, let's take a look at a new city. This is Martira, a town we're unveiling for the first time. It's a pastoral town, quite a contrast from the capital. It may be normal in other fantasy RPGs, but through these acts of traveling and staying at new places, I hope you get a true sense of being on a journey, which is a difficult thing to convey in modern-day stories. By incorporating a unique sense of daily life into traveling, we've made taking a trip feel as real as possible in this game. You'll encounter all sorts of things on the road, so please look forward to how the story unfolds. Let's drop in at the recruitment center in this city. Here you take requests to fight dangerous monsters. These threats to the city are called bounties. Bounties give you some nice rewards, which hopefully encourages you to challenge them. And that's really just one of many challenging aspects the game has to offer. This is the weapons shop. Each city you stay in has various facilities, and in this game your choice of equipment is especially important. In Metaphor, we wanted to give you the freedom to customize your party your own way. So we hope you'll even find some joy in making preparations to explore dungeons in your own style.
All right then.
Nice.
Let's enter the tavern. I see an informant here. Informants offer hints about dungeons and battle strategies. Even collecting information like this is something we put a lot of thought into making enjoyable. The back of the tavern is actually an inn. Visiting a new town and staying at a new inn, that's half the fun of traveling, isn't it?
100%.
There's so much to do in these cities and towns that I can't cover it all.
Old
so stay tuned for
JRPGs
further
and that
announcements.
feeling of like going to different towns and getting to the inn.
Moving on, let's hop into the Gauntlet Runner and head to the battlefield. The Gauntlet Runner is a vehicle that can travel safely across wastelands. A mobile base, if you will, with movement and mechanisms that allows it to run on magic. So our protagonist and many others travel in their Gauntlet Runners to gather popularity. Let's go ahead and board. This is the Gauntlet Runner's War Room. If you access the round table here, all your allies gather back from town, and a map of your journey opens. Most RPGs don't have a time limit on the adventure, but Metaphor revolves around the concept of dates and time.
Nice.
For people today, travel often has a fixed itinerary, such as 3 days and 2 nights. So in this game, we've captured the travel experience with predetermined lengths of activities and structure. But within that, what you do, where you go, is up to each player who can choose to do things differently. You're free to spend your time as you please. Here we have the list of quests I've accepted. You have a set time frame to complete the main story objective at each location you visit. But these side quests play an important role in the story too. Some require fighting strong enemies, while others may offer rare equipment. The order in which you take on these quests will have a great impact on how difficult the battles feel. So which challenges you take on first will play a big factor in your experience. Now let's pick a destination and head out. Okay, we have departed. In most games, you arrive at your destination instantly, but here you're inside the runner, heading toward it. Imagine, for example, living in a camper with your travel companions. Cooking, conversing, camping, and more. We want you to have a realistic traveling experience, so we designed the game to reflect that.
I love it. I love it.
This is the kitchen. You can cook the ingredients you've gathered with your friends to make valuable items. In the back is the common room. Looks like nobody's here right now, but your allies will often visit you to spend time with them. There is also a collection of books for you to read. Or if you'd rather not do anything, you can sleep here. As you can see, we have Japanese-style capsule-shaped beds. The Gauntlet Runner's interior is quite spacious and even has its own engine room. Here's a washing machine, and you'll find cleaning supplies too. I hope you're excited to learn more about how they play into things. You're not limited to staying inside the gauntlet runner. If you climb up the ladder to the deck, you can see it moving through this massive world.
Oh, that's so cool.
You can even see monsters soaring overhead. The gauntlet runner has so much to do as you head to your next stop that it's impossible to tell you it all here, so please stay tuned.
Merely a trap to draw in.
Once you've prepared in the runner or a city, you'll arrive in a dungeon. Here's an introduction to the combat system, which is critical to making progress. This is the entrance to a certain dungeon. Let's check the main menu before we head in. Here we have features like items, skills, and equipment. You can see that the UI has always been one of our strong suits. It's something that we were very particular about. You often spend a lot of time navigating menus in RPGs, so we wanted to give players a beautiful interface to enjoy a stronger sense of immersion. Let's check out the party customization screen. The key to strengthening a party in Metaphor lies in the job system, and the growth of these jobs is critical to advancing through the game.
Job system.
In Metaphor, the power of these jobs is called archetypes.
Final Fantasy,
Archetypes
hello.
are a very important element to this game, which I'll give you a few more details on. By confronting their anxiety, the protagonists acquire these archetypes, a special power. Think of them as heroic figures everyone possesses.
Atlus
Their
brought
powers
back the
manifest
job
in
system
various
before
forms
FF.
throughout the game. Examples of some archetypes that show up early in the game include the Seeker, who is an all-rounder in battle, the Mage, who strikes weaknesses with offensive magic, and the Thief, who can plunder resources. But the key point of the system here is that the character can undergo a transformation, taking on the appearance of various heroic figures and then use their skills to fight. Let's enter the dungeon and take a look at what kind of combat is possible.
Oh.
New skills?
Yeah, it's like a persona, right?
Once you enter the dungeon, use your fairy companion's power to analyze your surroundings.
Everyone all right?
This will give you a sort of ranking of nearby enemies. And by that I mean how strong they are. As you can see, many enemies are glowing blue, which indicates a lower rank, in other words, weaker enemies. One of the things we kept in mind during development was our goal to make the game as fast-paced and exhilarating as possible.
I think that's all of them.
You found something.
Tedious and slow-paced enemy encounters can ruin a game's rhythm, especially if you know you can win against weaker enemies.
We're not alone. Keep an eye out.
Now you'll notice we have a large monster ahead. More dangerous enemies give off a yellow glow. If the analysis indicates they're formidable, you should approach cautiously, unlike before. Pressing the squad button will call your party members to your side, transitioning us smoothly into a turn-based battle.
Nice.
If you initiate a squad battle before the enemy notices you, you earn a bonus first strike just like this. Even for battles that require a squad approach to defeat them with skills, the action portion before it is designed to provide a tactical element, with mechanics that can lead to both advantages and disadvantages. The squad option allows you to engage and enjoy tense, tactical battles without even drawing close, and using a variety of skills and strategic actions. The party customization is highly flexible and strategic, so we encourage you to create your own unique and powerful party.
Oh, this looks so good, man. This looks so good.
We have just annihilated the enemies. As you can see, you can earn bonus rewards by defeating all enemies without taking any damage. We implemented this feature to provide a sense of accomplishment in party customization, so I suggest you try it out. So that's the exhilarating action elements and the strategic nature of the turn-based battles. It's a battle system with two aspects to enjoy, so we hope you have fun when the game comes out.
That's awesome.
Next, I'd like to touch on the volume of dungeons. As you progress through the story, you'll come across main dungeons, which you'll tackle as part of the main story, and side dungeons, which you can explore as part of quests. Both types will of course plunge you into battle. In terms of the number of dungeons to challenge, it's more than any previous title of ours. Furthermore, the dungeon mechanics we've designed were created to avoid impacting the balance and pacing, reducing anything that may bore you. The battle system in these dungeons is one of our strongest selling points. So we hope you enjoy it.
Now we're talking.
As we created the game, one area we focused on was how spending time on the road impacted the growth of your party members. One of the systems that symbolize this is the follower system. The protagonist will meet and befriend various people over his journey. As he continues to deepen these bonds, these followers will become his strongest supporters. Seeing their way of life through these interactions, the protagonist senses the heroic image within them, giving him access to new archetypes in battle that awaken within him. It's up to the player to decide which followers to prioritize interacting with. Finding strategies to gain advantage, both in dungeons and outside of them, is a unique aspect of this game. We hope you enjoy them. There's more to share about archetypes, but we'll save that for future announcements. I'll just say for now that there's a significant number of them in the game. Furthermore, your other party members can also equip any type of archetype, giving you countless options in forming your party.
Nice.
Take a look. I'll show you on screen. Here's a party consisting only of brawlers. Unique parties like this are fully possible, so we hope you get creative with it. Metaphor has been created with the goal of fusing the idea of a journey.
That's awesome.
With interpersonal interactions, party growth, combat, and a taste of the storyline we've described today into a single game experience. So when the game releases, we hope you'll experience these aspects to the fullest.
Nice.
What did you think? That was only scratching the surface of the journey and the basics of the game system. There's so much more we can't wait to share. Metaphor is a massive game filled with interesting and unique elements. As for the narrative, I only touched on the beginning of the story, but the surprising twists and turns we're known for await you. I hope you're looking forward to hearing more about the story and characters that make this game truly special. In addition, starting in June, we're hoping to give you hands-on demos in various events around the world. The entire development team is working hard to get the game ready for release, so please stay tuned. I should also mention we're opening pre-orders today, so don't miss out.
Nice.
In addition to the standard edition, Metaphor is also available in a special physical collector's edition. This year marks 35 years since Atlus released its first game, and Metaphor serves as the 35th anniversary commemoration title for the Atlus brand. It's a celebration title, and we're very excited to get this game into your hands, so we hope you check it out when it launches. Before I sign off, I have a short video we prepared for those of you who stuck with us to the end. This is a scene from the Gauntlet Runner, which I spoke about earlier. Please look forward to the all-new RPG from Atlus, Metaphor.
No, it's not an
very much for
Xbox
your time
exclusive.
today.
It's coming to PS5. They're just paid by Microsoft to promote the Xbox version.
Hey there. Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be on Game Pass. Is that the end? I think that's the end. Is it weird that, to me, that they continue to find the weird Xbox advertising does just like we all know it's part of some business deal to trick people into thinking it's Xbox only and push that version the most, but your fans are mostly on PlayStation and Switch. It's kind of like what that X Square exec was talking about when he said that you know, the benefit of being multi-platform is that you have a company basically paying for the marketing. Like with Atlus, they have Microsoft essentially bankrolling like a lot of the marketing to popularize the game, and so the game can show up at like Xbox conferences and Xbox stuff, and it can show up at Sony stuff, right? So Xbox is also paying money to market the game, and so that's like the real benefit of multiplat for like companies like Atlus and Square, is that Microsoft will come in with their check and basically help promote the game. And then you'll go buy the game on PlayStation, but you found out about it because of Microsoft, if that makes sense. ReFantazio, thank you so much for the tier 1, bro. Thank you for being with us. Hope you've been doing well, man. But yeah, this game looks fucking incredible, man. It's so awesome. Again, like one of the cool features, I think that Krusty kind of mentioned it being from Earthbound, I believe, where, you know, you have weaker enemies and you're able to just attack them on the overworld essentially and not have to go into a battle screen to fight them. The game basically wants you to focus on turn-based battles with like enemies of your level or greater, right? And to not worry about like weaker enemies, right? Where you're doing repetitive actions, which I think is phenomenal, right? I don't want to like deal with like fights from like weaker enemies, right? So you could just go ahead and get those guys out of the way. If you need to farm weaker enemies for like crafting materials and stuff like that, you could just go up to them and give them a good old whack, and then you're good. Now, I get the benefits of the multiplat. I just find the way Microsoft does it odd. They seem to push console war shit and make people think it's exclusive for no reason. We know you have that big dick money, but I mean, that's what they've been doing for a long time, right? They did that during like Final Fantasy 13, right? Like all Final Fantasy 13's ads were Xbox 360 branded. They didn't have any PS3 branded ads except for in like, they had them in like Japan, right? But like in the US and the UK, it was all Xbox branded. We need a 4K upload of this. My only complaint, yeah, because the YouTube compression kind of killed it in some spots. But dude, this looks really, really phenomenal. I love that it's kind of like this traditional like fantasy RPG, almost kind of like what you would expect from like an older FF title, and then it's like also like has Persona social sims and social link like elements to it as well. It's like this really cool hybrid of things. They also stopped Westerners playing the definitive editions of Trails of Vesperia on PS3 until the remake. Yeah, I know. I remember that. That was terrible. JRPG fans hated Microsoft back then because Microsoft would just pay for like all the JRPGs unlock, and it's just like nobody wanted to buy Xbox stuff. And it's actually really funny too, because as much money as Microsoft put into making so many JRPGs Xbox exclusive back then, nobody still bought those games on Xbox. It's like, it's so tragic. A new Atlus game? Yes, this is a brand new Atlus IP from the creators of Persona. It's not about to matter soon. They're selling Xbox. Yeah, I mean, Xbox first party games are coming to PS5 anyway. But it's really for Microsoft, it's about advertising Game Pass, right? So that's really the core thing here. So this looks amazing, guys. It's coming in October, and it's kind of everything I've wanted. They showed off so much today, and I just feel like this is awesome. Like a strong Game of the Year contender, really. How long ago did we first learn about ReFantazio again? Like, I swear it has been it's been a long time. Like, let's see, Project ReFantazio announcement. Wow, we first learned about Project ReFantazio back in December 2017. So it was, yeah, it's been a long time. December 2017. So this game has been in development for like 7 years ish. So close to. By the time it releases, it'll have been 7 years. Very long time. Very typical Atlus game length. So that's not too surprising. What do you think about the social sim elements? Do you think it'll be like Persona? I think it will be similar to Persona, but I don't think it's going to be exactly the same. Like, one of the things I noticed was that, for example, the rank on the social link that they had there was like rank like 1 through 5. So already it's not like you have like a 10 rank. So that's already an interesting difference. And then on top of that, it seems like it unlocks something on like a skill tree whenever you do that, which is also kind of interesting. I wonder if certain people are tied to certain jobs, right? Like, if that's how this, yeah, it seems the social links are job connected, right? That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, it's sort of like, oh yeah, like you got like the social link with like, the social link unlocked the brawler job. Okay, yeah. So then that's exactly what it is. And then you'll level that job by leveling the social link. So it is a pretty similar thing to Persona, where, like, you know, the different personas are different arcana, and by leveling that arcana through the social link, you can then fuse more powerful personas. So yeah, it's a pretty similar gameplay loop, although it seems like it'll have a few differences here and there. So Persona Central's got the box art. Oh man. Oh man. That's cool. That's cool. The guy with the horns at the top, the blonde guy, he kind of reminds me of Lucifer from Devilman. But yeah, I think they're removing some of the fluff and mechanically useless levels social links and confidants had, so maybe each job will reward you mechanically with new jobs and skills. Right, that would actually be like a huge pro, right? Because I don't think it needs as many levels as Persona has. I think you could probably do it like a couple of levels and it'd be okay. When we stream Persona, I've been playing Persona 3 Reload casually. I haven't been streaming it. At first I was going to stream it, but I've just been playing it. I've been playing it on the deck, dude. I mean, this thing's awesome. I was going to stream it, and then I got in the habit of playing it on Steam Deck, and like, that was kind of over for me. Because I just love the Steam Deck so much. If you guys haven't played it, Persona games on Steam Deck, it's awesome. I still prefer Persona 4 Golden on the Vita. It's just Persona games are so ideal portably. Like, they're so ideal portably, to the point of where, like, trying to boot it up and play it like on like a PC, it's like, it's so... Does it still tank whenever you enter Palomino Mall? No, it doesn't. Actually, the reason that it tanks whenever you enter Palomino Mall is because the reflections, for whatever reason, are like insanely GPU intensive. And they're like needlessly so. And so if all you do is go into the settings and turn the reflections off, it totally works. But yeah, unless you have like a more recent graphics card, it will tank your frame rate really badly. But yeah, if you if you turn the reflections off, it's fine. That's all you have to do. And it's like that on Steam Deck as well. It's like that on Steam Deck as well. So just turn it off, and it's fine. Yeah, it's ray traced, but the thing about it is that older GPUs don't have like the components for ray tracing, so I think they have to like process it. Like, if you don't have like one of like the later NVIDIA GPUs, then like it'll just tank the frame rate. And I still have an older GPU, so but I'm gonna build a new PC this year. So skateboarding on a sword feels like a cool JRPG concept. It's like the most JRPG thing ever to skateboard on a sword. Wow, this was fucking amazing. Yeah, it was. It was really cool. It's really cool. This game is like so JRPG core. It's like everything that I love about JRPGs, and they made it into one awesome ass game. I'm really impressed. The sword surfing. I think the way they implement the calendar in this game too is also really interesting in a way that like is different from Persona. But yeah. I think it's the most ambitious and impressive project that Atlus has ever shown so far. Right. I think this is really building off of the ambition of Persona 5, because Persona 5 was also hugely ambitious, and it really paid off for that game. And from what Midori and like other people are saying, Persona 6 is actually like even more ambitious. The music is seriously sounding amazing. The art direction is one of their most impressive, which is already saying a lot considering their catalog. The UI design is among the best. The combat looks great. The world design and approach to progression system looks unique and inspired. The story premise and the things in it could explore in ways nobody had before. The character design is great. The imported talent on board is truly impressive. This game has me sold. I couldn't have said it better myself. Hylian, that's perfect. Perfect way to put it. The 4K trailer is on. Okay, let's watch that. Hold on. Hold on.
I truly believed that I might end the strife and discrimination that plagued our people across nigh endless years.
Oh, this is new. This wasn't part of the...
A land grotesque as its people.
Oh wait, no, this is the trailer they opened with.
Let us
Okay.
speak of the old vulture's last grasp at power. The tournament for the throne.
Ah, looks so good in 4K.
Our first trial is to slay a monster.
Sounds like we've lost a few candidates already too. Poor bastards went after something too nasty for their headhunt.
A land full of feral humans, with people either running or going mad.
I'm sorry, the window is all
What do we
center.
believe in? Really?
We'll start over. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's do it again.
I truly believed that I might end the strife and discrimination that plagued our people across nigh endless years.
Yeah, the gameplay is 60 frames per second, right?
A land
So,
grotesque as its people.
let's go.
Let us speak of the old vulture's last grasp at power. The tournament for the throne.
So, summing up, our first trial is to slay a monster.
Sounds like we've lost a few candidates already too. Poor bastards went after something too nasty for their headhunt.
A land full of feral humans, with people either running or going mad.
What do we believe in? Really?
You lot! Enemy attack!
Hitting us while we're asleep is dirty fighting.
Music, man. So good.
You're in this race to become king, are you?
Not exactly.
I treat all tribes equally.
Each ally of a different tribe. Fascinating. Fear and anxiety. They always lead the people astray.
This place, it isn't a utopia.
If that's the real world, then it can die alongside you!
I will not let you die in vain.
He'll be sending all traitors to the gallows. Not just us, but any innocent folks he doesn't find use for.
It is a new dawn, and its light shines upon Lord Luis's king.
time is beyond your meddling now.
I must clear my head of these fantasies. In the end, clinging to a dream will do me no good.
Knowing all this, I shall claim the ideals you abandoned and finish it in your stead.
Now that's what I call peak. Sheesh. What's this? Oh man. What's all the collector's edition got? Like, okay, base game, steelbook, soundtrack, art book. What is that? Homotintic metallic pins? Whatever that means. Metallic pins, basically. Sticker sheet. Kingdom of Uchronia cloth map. Oh, dude. Okay, that's it. Collector's edition it is. There's a map. All right? I'm going to tell you guys some real shit. You really want me to buy, if you want me to buy a game physical, you want me to buy your collector's edition, put a fucking map in there and I'll do it. Put a fucking map in there and I'll do it. I'll do it. I need a map. A map is when there is a map and an RPG, dog, that shit goes crazy. I love a map. It's just like I have a lot of fond memories of like buying like RPGs as a kid and there being a fucking map inside of them. Like when you open the game up and there's a map inside, dog, you know that game is going fucking crazy. Like you're like, oh shit, we are role playing. Like, let's go. Like, that's how you sell me, bro. Costume and battle BGM set DLC voucher. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you what this means. This means they're selling you. Oh wait, it's right here. I was just gonna joke. But actually, it's right here. They are, in fact, selling you Persona costumes. And SMT costumes, actually, too, which is surprising. But yeah. Yeah, so you have a bunch of Persona costumes, and you'll have Persona music. Like, it's standard ATLUS DLC at this point. At this point, it's kind of a fucking meme, honestly. Like, it's a meme to me at this point to have like Persona, costumes and music DLC. I'm kind of tired of it at this point. I'm like, can y'all come up with something else other than like you can dress as Joker from Persona 5 for like the DLC of every game that ATLUS is. You can play as fucking Joker in every game. ATLUS 35th anniversary history digital book. Digital history book? Okay. That's kind of mid. I don't think I want like a digital history book. That's who the fuck cares? 35th anniversary all-time best soundtrack. That I do care about. And pre-order bonus voucher. That's cool. I don't think we know how much this is. Someone out there can probably find the price of it, but it's $150. $150 is a good price for a map. It's a good price for a map. I'll take it for a cloth map. I love it. I love cloth maps, and I love RPGs that have cloth maps in them because I'm like, I don't know. It makes me feel like you take your world seriously. They usually have a bust for that price, But yeah, but this is Atlus, bro. This is Atlus. I'll own it eventually. I gotta let go of my retro consoles eventually. Nah. I think it's coming to PS4. It might be. It might be, actually. I know it's coming to PS5, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's coming to PS4 as well, because it's coming to Steam. Yeah, it's coming to PS4 as well. So that's not too surprising, as Atlus usually does this, because in Japan, yeah, there's no way that people on like PS like basically cross-gen is kind of necessary still there, because not enough people own a PS5 yet. So, and it's coming to Game Pass. Basically, it's coming to everything except Switch. Put simply, it's coming to everything but Switch. And that's because this game would chug like hell on Switch. I mean, just think about like SMT5 on Switch, right? And how that game chugs. And so, looking at this game right here, and it looking even more big and ambitious than SMT5, I'm thinking that this game would run like shit on on Switch. It's gonna be a Switch 2 title, yes. I agree, chat. But Switch 1, yeah, there's no way in hell. And Persona 3 Reload is also coming to Switch. Definitive version will come to Switch 2 and we'll all double dip, yeah. Yeah. Whenever they come out with Metaphor ReFantazio, we'll all buy it. Again. How long we're in the PS5 lifetime and the PS4 still have new games? In fairness, when Persona 5 launched, we were 4 years into into PlayStation 4's life cycle, and it still launched on PS3, right? So, to be fair, yeah. That being said, you're not wrong, because outside of this, we do have quite a few games that are still coming to PS4. But I get it. If your game can still run on PS4, I'd probably put it on PS4 as well, right? Like, why not? Because there's still people who are buying. I mean, there's still people that are playing like you'd be surprised how long PS2 lasted in like a lot of countries, especially. Like, it was something that I didn't know about for a while, but like people were still making like ports of like soccer games and stuff like that. I think like FIFA and shit, because like PS2 was like still like really popular for a long time, and like Wii. And I'm talking about like, this was like years after these consoles had basically been like defunct, and like they were still making it like for like a super long time. And I was like blown away when I found that out, because like in a lot of places, like especially like South America and stuff, like there was like a lot of people still buying them and playing them. And so the Wii just got a new Just Dance game last year, if I recall correctly. No shit, but that doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, like, let me see something. Like, last FIFA game on Wii. Okay, when do you guys think the last FIFA game came out for, like, Nintendo Wii? This will, like, blow your mind. 2015. FIFA 2015 was the last... 2015. Now in 2013 is like when PS4 was like already like, I mean, the 2015, yeah, PS4 was already 2 years old. And the Wii ended its run in like 2012. Yeah. So like 3 years after like Wii had already been dead. The Wii U was already ending, right? And then I think the last FIFA game on like PS2. The last FIFA game on PS2 was FIFA 2013. So think about that, right? Like 13 years after PS2 came out, and they were still like releasing like FIFA on PS2. Isn't that ridiculous? Right? Anyway, yeah, the longevity of some of these older consoles is kind of ridiculous. I actually think that like we've kind of come to a point now, and this is where console fanboys come in and like beat my ass for saying this, because they always want like more aggressive AAA graphics. But we're kind of getting to a point now of where consoles like being phased out is just slower and slower, because like it's just gotten to a point now of where it's like, if you have a well optimized game, usually it'll still run on like a lot of older hardware, and like it seems like games just right now like already cost too much to make, and we're not able to push graphical fidelity that much further. So okay, so one thing I found interesting is that you'll be able to change the name of the MC at any time of the story. That's cool. I feel like that's weird, but it's cool. I guess it doesn't matter, right? Like, because the MC's name is kind of like arbitrary anyway, so I wouldn't change it just for the sake of consistency, right? Like, I feel like, I kind of want it to be the same throughout the whole playthrough, but technically it's not like it does anything, right? That being able to rename a character is kind of like whatever. Yeah, I'm pretty sure like most RPGs, like when you name the character, you can't like really go back and rename it. So, I mean, there's a couple, but usually it's like, it's not that many that I can think of where you could just go back and rename your character. So, I do care about others, but spending monies for games isn't increasing with all the other prices increasing. Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Gaming right now, there's like a lot of discourse about like if gaming is in a rut. I don't know if you guys have seen that. That's been like the talk. And I don't really have like a strong take on it one way or the other, because I think it depends on like which way you're viewing it. The Spawnway tweet making rounds. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. And then people have just been talking about that on Twitter, and like, it kind of depends on like, again, it's the perspective, right? Because on one hand, it's like we have like so many awesome games coming out. Like look at like 2023, for example, right? Which was like one of the strongest years ever. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like, I feel like I can never finish all the games that came out like last year that I want to play. I can never finish all the games that I want to play, period, because there's just so much. In fact, there's too much, right? At the same time, too, Unbiased Fanboy here in YouTube chat says it right. Lots of layoffs and big shifts. Yeah. AAA gaming is definitely in a rut. Yeah, that's like really what it is, right? Is that AAA gaming is kind of ass right now. I feel like it's mostly being felt because Sony, like as one of the largest publishers, has kind of like not really had the kind of output this generation, I feel, as PS4. And this is something that Sony fanboys hate me for saying, but I just feel like a lot of people haven't been like, I don't know, man, like when PS4 came out and like during like in the middle of PS4 generation, it was kind of clear that this is like one of Sony's best generations, right? It was like, at the time with PS4, everyone felt like this is like the second coming of PS2 for a while, because I feel like PS4 was like such a great machine, and that I got so much mileage out of PS4. I don't know if you guys feel that way too, but I feel like PS4 fucked like hard. Like I feel like that was like such a great machine that I got so much mileage out of. PS4 first 3 years were not good. They were rough, yeah, but I feel like by the end of PS4's like life cycle, especially like looking back, by the middle of PS4's life cycle, really, I feel like PS4 was like incredible. Kind of true. Naughty Dog has still not put out a new PS5 game. That's another thing too, is that Sony, it feels like, has like an over reliance right now on a lot of remakes and stuff, and so it does feel kind of, you know, AAA is not sustainable. It's inarguably obvious, but AAA gaming is run by suits who don't understand gaming exists to make number go bigger so they can afford another new yacht in their golden parachute. I mean, yeah. Right. Didn't they remake Last of Us 2? It was a remaster, but they did remake Last of Us 1. And I mean, remastering Last of Us 2 is kind of insane, right? Because there's nothing that like a patch couldn't have done, like a PS4 or like a free PS5 update couldn't have done. Really, but yeah. I like PS5 more as a machine though than PS4. I think that inarguably it's a better machine. Right? It is. And I feel the upgrade more because of the SSD. Like, I think the SSD has made like a huge tangible difference, actually, more so than the graphics. Better user experience. Actually, yeah, the UI and the SSD are actually the big difference with the PS5 for me. Like, I feel like navigating PS5 and like load screens and stuff like that have made PS5 like a really great experience. I just think that like it did kind of feel like for a lot of people that PS4's output was a bit stronger, and it's like exclusive output in particular, right? Because it's not like there's been a shortage of games, it's just that there's been a shortage of like, you can only play this on PS5, right? And it's funny too, because you could definitely say, and I agree, that PS5 is the best place to play games. It is. Like, it's the best place to play. But I guess for a lot of people, it doesn't feel like the, I don't know. It feels like Sony as a publisher has kind of, just been okay. Other than PC, yeah. It's still like the best console to play games on, for sure. Playing physical on PS5 is wild, though. Silence for 30 minutes, then it sounds like it's about to explode when checking the disc is still inserted, then silent again. I didn't even know that, because it's very weird. I bought a physical PS5, and I haven't bought a single physical game for my PS5 yet. I know physical people are gonna kill me, but I'm a PC gamer anyway, so like I gave up physical like a long ass time ago. I was looking at the fuck. Okay, so listen, hold on. First of all, in fairness to me, before you guys jump down the physical versus digital bandwagon, in fairness to me, companies like send me a lot of their games, and so they send me codes, right? So the real reason that I like mostly went digital is because I was already getting so many games digitally anyways that it ended up just being like it ended up just not being a thing. Elliot, thank you for the $3 super chat. Free PS5 update for The Last of Us 2. It unlocked FPS. Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. I wonder when that's coming to PC then. I assumed it would have came to PC with the remaster. I guess it didn't though. Because The Last of Us 1 is on PC now. You know what? They'll launch the PC version just like they did with the HBO series, because they launched the PC version of The Last of Us Part 1. That was with the HBO series. So I'm willing to bet like when season 2 of like The Last of Us drops, they'll drop the PC version. The PC version of 1 was shit, yeah. It was like an abomination in terms of its performance. The big issue with AAA gaming for me is that game design is all very similar to each other now. Like, there's a huge audience of casual gamers who will now buy any AAA open world action game with RPG elements and or FPS with really good graphics. And because those games will sell like 1 million copies minimum, that's all AAA is now, because sales drive the game design when the games are expensive. There's no variety in the AAA space anymore. Right. Well, yeah, because AAA games are made to sell as many copies as possible, right? Because if I have to spend $300 million making a game, I want to know for goddamn sure that I'm getting that 300 million back, right? Like, no question. Like, if I'm not getting it back, we have a problem. So I don't want to spend that money on some high risk, weird, obscure art project. I want to spend it on something that I know is going to make that money back. And so what do we do to make sure that something is going to make its money back? We start doing what's called market research. And we look into what's popular and what do people like. And then we make something based on what we think people like, right? Which sucks, because actually, when you make stuff based on what people like, you actually end up making something that people don't like, or that feels like it's trying too hard to be something that people like, right? And so that's how you get every game slowly becoming a third-person AAA action RPG. And yeah, that's how video games have become so homogenized in that way. Laws need to be changed so digital, that even digital we own our games. A shitty EULA should not allow companies to flip a switch and take away purchases. But hey, we have laws to protect consumers. Madness. Laws to protect profit margins, though. Good. No, I completely agree. And that's like the thing I think a lot of people miss with like the physical versus digital games argument, is that argument shouldn't even be a thing. Like, if you purchase the game, you should own it, whether it's physical or digital. Like, people trying to like pit like physical versus digital is like like that shouldn't even be like the argument, right? Like, people are saying, oh, make sure like you always buy your games physical. I was like, no. Instead of telling consumers that, you need to start telling companies and start telling lawmakers, hey, if I buy something, it's mine. Period. Like, and we need to make that law and make that so that we can't be fucked, basically. Because eventually, you know, we will live in a digital world where most purchases are digital. And yeah, so you should still have ownership regardless. And nobody should be able to take that away from you, actually. Physical is just better, in my opinion. I always feel like I run out of space on the console. So, I mean, like, the thing is, though, too, is that, like, a physical game and a digital game actually take up the same amount of space. Because your game, all the digital game does is, like, copy, like, the 1.0 version to your hard drive. And then it acts as a DRM key to check and make sure that, like, you actually are not like pirating the game in any way, or you haven't like removed the disc. So technically, I mean, it's going to take up the same amount of space on your hard drive. It's purely preference, and I think it's fine to prefer physical or digital, but I do think that companies, you know, right now we have an issue where it's like, you know, legally with digital games, they can kind of fuck you with them. So that's why I support, you know, platforms like GOG, for example, where GOG says you own the game DRM free. So the 1.0 version isn't always on the disc anymore. They are just DRM keys now. Yeah. So I know some people push back on that, though, and they say that most games do have like the 1.0 build and run. And they're not wrong. But the 1.0 build nowadays is kind of like, you know, what does that even mean? You know? Like, if you have the 1.0 build of Final Fantasy 15, you have a game that, like, doesn't even work. Right? Like, the 1.0 build of Final Fantasy 15 is fucking worthless. It literally doesn't have half the game. It literally is so buggy that it barely runs and is, like, super unoptimized frame rate wise. To this day, Persona 5 on PS4 has never left 1.0, and so that's incredible. Not a single patch was needed for that game. But see, that's also cool too, is that like you know, I do think that Atlus, they put out incredibly polished games to the point of where it's never needed. I also think too that like one thing that you can really give Square Enix credit for is that Square Enix, I mean, excuse the fact that I just used Final Fantasy 15 as an example. Outside of Final Fantasy 15, Square Enix does actually put out incredibly polished bug-free games for the most part. Like, it's very rare outside of FF15. Well, 14 1.0. Aside from those two, most of the time Square Enix games come out pretty bug-free. Like, that has not been like a tremendous ongoing like issue for them. Like, yeah, like think about like Rebirth, for example, right? Like Rebirth had no major bugs. And it was like a huge open world game. It's actually kind of insane, like when you think about it, right? Because Rebirth is a way bigger game than Final Fantasy 15. Yeah, Final Fantasy 16 also didn't have any bugs, right? Like 16 was basically bug-free from like day one, which is also crazy. Kingdom Hearts 3, also like fairly bug-free. Dragon Quest 11, pretty much bug-free, and those are all pretty big games. So FF15 needing a lot of patches was probably a Luminous Engine thing. It was definitely a Luminous Engine thing too. Probably more than anything. It's probably why it needed so much work. Because, I mean, Forspoken ended up running on like a better version of that engine, but even Forspoken actually needed like some fairly big patches that came later on that actually got Forspoken running better. And so if you actually look into Forspoken now, Forspoken actually looks and plays better because they ended up patching Luminous Engine more. And so, yeah. So even still to this day, you know, Luminous still has a ton of issues. But I think Digital Foundry did a video on it you can look up, and they're like, Forspoken looks and runs like so much better than it did on day one because they ended up patching a ton of things in like Luminous, and they changed some of the stuff in lighting and shadows, and now it's like, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, man. I still can't believe Tears of the Kingdom works so good out of the box. Yeah, that's another thing too, is that Nintendo also has incredibly bug-free software too. I think that like Nintendo and like Square Enix in particular, and then maybe Atlus, they really release like a lot of like profoundly bug-free games. Like those publishers in particular. Dragon Quest XI is still one of the best looking JRPGs in general, and it runs effortlessly on Switch. You know, too, like, I feel like Dragon Quest XI, this is like an entirely different tangent that I'm about to go on Dragon Quest XI. This is a tangent that's going to get me clipped and ratioed. I really feel like, but it's an argument you'll agree with, Crossy. Like, I feel 100%. I really feel like Dragon Quest XI, like, kind of like made things obvious for me with like what Square Enix should be doing, and with like Final Fantasy, because I feel like Dragon Quest XI sold like 5 million, right? Let me check that. 6.5 million. Okay, Dragon Quest XI sold 6.5 million, and I know that game cost way less than Final Fantasy VII Remake or Rebirth. And it probably cost less than Final Fantasy, like, 16. It definitely cost less than Final Fantasy 16. Because those icon fights were, like, hugely expensive. And, yeah, and they had strong Japan sales, too, right? And so I'm just thinking, man, I'm like, man, Dragon Quest XI, turn-based cel-shaded game, sold 6.5 million. And I'm just like... They also had the demake version on 3DS too, so maybe that ended up costing them more. And they had the 2D version sync up, but like ultimately, Dragon Quest XI still probably cost way less money altogether than like Final Fantasy 16, right? Or like Final Fantasy 7 re-trilogy, and that sold 6.5 million units. Which is almost as much as Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I'm just thinking that, like, of course, like Dragon Quest 12, I imagine, is like Dragon Quest 12 is probably going to come first to like PlayStation, but it might also come to Switch. We don't know because it doesn't have an announcement. I imagine it might come to Switch too, like Dragon Quest 12, Switch 2, and PS5. That'd make a ton of sense to me. I imagine that thing is going to sell more than like whatever the next Final Fantasy is, right? I don't know, dude. Cell shaded graphics, turn based combat, and that thing still sold 6.5 million units, right? Primarily because they didn't sacrifice like their Japanese audience. I don't know, dude. But they also grew tremendously in the West as well. Like most people in the West, their first Dragon Quest is probably 11, right? If not 8, because 8 also made like really smart moves. Can we get like, does anyone have a figure for how much Dragon Quest 11 sold in like the West? Like, or a breakdown of like, because I'm really curious. Sales in the West. The Western sales over 2 million copies. Oh, but that's dated. That's back from when it sold 3 million copies 3 years ago. It's at 6.5 million now. Actually, most of those sales was still in the West. Yeah, Dragon Quest is doing really good. And FF is like struggling, right? Can we hold on? Let me see something. Dragon Quest sales, because 11's the best-selling game, right? 11 is the best-selling game, I think, by far. Wait, no. It says here that Dragon Quest 3 sold like 7.4 million units. Is that right? That can't be right. I think that's across several re-releases or something. No. Yeah, Dragon Quest 11 is the best-selling one by far. So I think they kind of goofed. I think they kind of goofed by not. 6.5 is the end of... Wait, is that from the end of 2021 that they sold 6.5 million units? Is that what that is? Hold on, let me check. Because if that's the case, they've definitely sold like over 7, maybe 8 by now. Wait, you're right. That's as of 2021. Fuck, man. Dragon Quest 11 killed it. It's probably sold way more than like FF7 Remake. It's probably like blown Remake like out of the fucking water. Holy shit. Jesus, man. Actually, well, no, not more than Remake, because Remake sold 7 million. But it would be true to say that it sold more than Rebirth and 16 combined. All while costing tremendously less than what those games did. Okay, which leads into like my hot take is that I think it'd be smart for like FF17 if they made FF17 more like a Dragon Questy game. Ish. Like, make it like Dragon Quest 11, and they could even go back to like turn-based or something, right? Because they don't have to justify it in the same way they do with like a Final Fantasy 16 mega blockbuster, game. The only reason I say that is because at this point, like when we go back to talking about Rebirth sales, I'm kind of just like, dude, like, with Rebirth, like, I assume Rebirth's at 3 million. Right? But I'm just like, dude, if these games aren't selling more than like what they currently are, then just scale down. Right? And I don't think that anyone would actually be mad if they like went with like more of like the style of DQ11 for Final Fantasy 17. I actually think a lot of people would be hyped. Like, I think they'd actually be incredibly hyped if FF17 looked. And so I'm not saying that's like definitely what they should do for 18 and 19 and 20, but I think actually making FF17 like a Dragon Quest kind of thing, just one time to try it, to see how it works, how it sells for them. I don't think it'd be a bad idea for them to see what that does. Now, the success of Dragon Quest is something unique to it. It's because DQ1 have been entirely under the control of Yuji Horii and not Square Enix. His own company, Under the Armour, have complete creative control of the series. SE just makes the game. FF cannot do that at this point. Right. You're not wrong. I'm just saying that, like, it wouldn't be a bad idea to try, though. No, I'm not saying like, I'm not necessarily saying like make FF17 Dragon Quest in like disguise, but I'm actually just saying like it actually, because Dragon Quest has stayed like kind of traditional, like over time, like it might not actually be like a bad idea to make like a traditional FF for FF17 to keep the cost of the game in line. And then just see how it does, and like have like stylized graphics and stuff. I'm not saying that would necessarily be like a big like giant like multi-million seller. I'm not saying that it would be like the future of FF, but I'm saying that at this point, with like the sales like not really improving with 16 and Rebirth, and they're kind of stagnant, it's worth its try, right? Because it would cost significantly less money. So if they still only sell to the FF faithful, they would still make a bigger profit margin than they probably did on 16 and Rebirth. I guess that's my point. I don't know how we got on this, but anyway, Dragon Quest 3 and Dragon Quest 12 are going to outsell Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth in Japan, and the third part in Japan. Yeah, I mean, they probably are. I also think FF7 Remake Project is worth it alone just for developing tech that makes other FF games and FF remakes could benefit from. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I still think that the Re-Trilogy has made a style of combat that I do want to see. So if they do make, you know, FF17 another big AAA game, which is probably what it's going to be, then I want to see it have something closer to Re-Trilogy combat. Also, DQ finally gets its day in the sun in the West. It deserved. Champion success came after Satoru Iwata passed away. He was why DQ9 on the DS got such a massive advertisement push. He believed that DQ could be successful in the West if Square Enix actually gave it a proper try, which is also why to this day, whenever DQ pops up on Nintendo Co., Nintendo advertises and publishes the games. Oh, wow. That's crazy. I didn't know he was that deeply involved with it. Anyway, yeah. He's saying it's time for another Final Fantasy IX. Yeah, I guess that is what I'm saying, right? Like, it wouldn't be a bad idea for them to just FF9. And not necessarily in setting or anything like that, but just like in the sense of like scale and how the game is accomplished. Because right now, I think we have because right now, like they were saying, like FF16 cost like an extraordinary amount of money, right? Because the icon fights were so expensive to make. And I'm just thinking in my head, I'm just like, damn, dude, they spent like an extraordinary amount of money on that. And then they have titles like Dragon Quest 11 and Nier Automata that like blow up for them. And so I don't know, maybe like raw AAA prowess isn't like necessarily the way to make FF like blow up further, right? They should have just made a retro FF game every once in a while to supplement their bigger titles. 2D HD style, make it mainline, charge 60 instead of 70. and make bank and please both sides of yeah, no, so I talked about this before even, where another option that I think that Square Enix has would be just straight up splitting the series, right? And making like, and not even like HD 2D, but even like a 3D game that doesn't necessarily have like the production values of like a AAA game, but it has like, it does like look good and it has stylized graphics and turn-based combat. And they call it like I don't know, like a spin-off like Final Fantasy Crystal Legacy or some bullshit. And then like with like the main number games, they continue to do like, you know, like what they've done with like 15 and 16, where it pushes like, you know, AAA fidelity to like the max. But then they also have like these like basically like purist Final Fantasy like spin-off games that people would also buy and be cheaper to develop. And I think that experimenting with that would actually be like a cool idea. Should Bravely Default have been called Final Fantasy? I think it was cool that they called it Bravely Default and didn't just make it Final Fantasy to over rely on Final Fantasy. But I mean, Bravely Default, like everyone knows that deep down that's an FF game. Deep down we all know it. But yeah, it probably would have sold more, like a little bit more, if they called it Final Fantasy. But I think it's cool that they didn't. Doesn't KH already fill that role? No, I don't think KH fills that role. KH is definitely its own thing. Final Fantasy Purist Legacy, yeah. I mean, it's just an idea. I'm just like literally spitballing ideas, and I guess the only reason I'm doing that is because, like, again, after Final Fantasy 16 and after Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, it's kind of like, I imagine Square Enix is kind of like thinking, like, where do we go with FF from here? Right? Like, that would kind of be what I would think. Because where do you go with it from here? Right? Like, where do you go next after this? Like, I don't want Dragon Quest Final Fantasy 2 kiddish. No way, bro. Like, have you played 1 through 6? Hell, or even like OG 7, really. Or hell, even like 7, the recent 7 games, which I feel like also have like that same like whimsy and cartoonishness to them, even despite like the AAA graphics. So I feel like Final Fantasy is like not that far off. It's only kind of become like more serious in like recent games, but it also was like, Final Fantasy is also like goofy as fuck. And has like a bunch of like weird cartoonish characters appearing and silliness and whatnot. So I don't know. I actually think that like Final Fantasy, like, yeah, and like Final Fantasy, like that goofiness is also like, it's one of the things that made some people kind of like elevate Rebirth over 16, is because they were like, I like this game is goofy, and like that 16 isn't. And I do think that like 16's balancing of that stuff could have been like a little bit better. Like, I think FF14 actually has like the best balance. I know people say it like with Rebirth, but I think 14 also has like a really good balance of like really goofy and also being like really serious and grounded. So actually, I kind of wish that 16 did lean like a little bit more of like into like 14's space, because I think that 14 also gets like what I would call like peak Final Fantasy tone correct, right? 16, yeah. I mean, it's not to say 16 didn't have funny moments, for sure. I think Great Grieger's Gash is still funny as fuck. And yeah, so 16, yeah, because some people will say like 16 had like no funny in it, like whatsoever, and like Uncle Byron was funny. There are moments like that, but I do still think that they probably could have done like a better balance, like with their humor and their levity there, and which is funny again because everyone will point to like Rebirth as like a grand return to that. And not to say that Rebirth doesn't nail it, but I'm like, what's more confusing to me is that I think 14 nails it as much or more than Rebirth. And I'm just like, Yeah, and I feel like it's very strange that it's the team that made 14 didn't get that balance right. 16 speaks a lot to my humor as a Brit. There's a lot of sarcasm and colloquial humor rather than usual FF humor, more overt cartoonish levity that the series is more known for. Right. And I see both, and I like both, but I do think that, like, yeah, I guess more people are looking for, like, what kind of, like, the series is more known for, which I think that 14 kind of gets that balance a lot more right. I think, honestly, like, too, and, like, it's not even just, like, 16. I think that, like, when you look at, like, the CBU3 lineage, and you look at, like, Final Fantasy 12, and not to say that Final Fantasy 12 was always, like, oh my god, laugh out loud, but it also just had like that whimsy to it oftentimes, like there's like bunny girls and shit. There's a lot of cool stuff happening, stuff like that. So I don't want the next one to be like so lighthearted that I don't ever take it seriously, and for them to try to like dial back and be like, we gotta have humor now, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want them to have like a knee-jerk reaction and then think that the next like Final Fantasy game has to be like the funniest fucking shit in the entire world otherwise. So I don't want them to have that knee-jerk reaction. I do think that they could nail the balance better. I don't think that it necessarily has to be like, it needs to just copy like Rebirth and like see like what Rebirth is like doing, and I don't think it needs to do that either. But I do think that like whatever, like if CVU3 is like working on like Final Fantasy 17, I think that they should probably take a better look at like 14, for example, and see why people love 14, and really study 14 a lot more, and then I think they'll have like their balance better. For me personally, I couldn't get into the high school drama persona, but my god, does this fantasy world tickle my fancy more? No, yeah, I think that might actually appeal to more people, because this is not high school and because this is medieval fantasy. So I think that Atlus actually is cooking with this one a little bit more for a certain audience. I don't mind high school. I also don't mind a fantasy. So I'm flexible either way. I like both. But I think if I can do Persona stuff in a fantasy world, then I'm really gonna fucking like it. So, that's gonna. Message Square Enix message received in SP Taika Waititi to write and direct FF17. Now, actually, I don't know who's gonna make FF17. I'll tell you this: I hope it's a face that I've never seen before. If it's not Hamaguchi, I would be fine if it was Hamaguchi. But I think I'd be more excited if it was like a brand new guy even. Really, I kind of just want to see it. But I do think that Hamaguchi should have his own mainline title too. But I think that like they should let someone like fresh. I guess Hamaguchi is pretty fresh, which is why I would want to see him do his own. Because Rebirth is like the only thing he's directed, but yeah, I kind of want to see like some really fresh faces in there, because I think FF has like really circled like around like the old guard for too long, and I think we're ready for like the not old guard. Hamaguchi Ishikawa combo, that'd be incredible. Okay, so I think we're gonna call it a stream here. If you're on Twitch, we're gonna raid Philip Hawthorne, and if you're on YouTube, look forward to a video tomorrow. That's probably that's going to recap all this and all the metaphor news that has come out. And yeah, all right, I love you guys.